A 7-year-old boy bumps into Jesus in a village street. Jesus turns, speaks 5 words. "You shall go no further." The boy collapses, dead. His mother screams. Villagers gather. Mary grabs her son by the arm, her face white with terror. Joseph arrives running. "What have you done?" Jesus looks at the dead child, then at the crowd. His expression is cold. No remorse, no explanation, just power. This story appears in the Ethiopian Bible. Rome spent 16 centuries trying to erase it. 2nd century Christianity, a revolution spreading through the Roman Empire. In Alexandria, a mother named Helena reads to her children by lamplight. The scroll in her hands is called the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. It contains stories about Jesus no canonical gospel mentions. Stories of young Jesus performing miracles, cursing enemies, raising the dead, all before age 12. Helena's voice is steady as she reads the tale of the clay sparrows. How 5-year-old Jesus molded birds from mud. How he clapped his hands and brought them to life. Her youngest daughter's eyes widen. Down the street, 20 other families own copies of the same text. In Rome, thousands. Across the empire, hundreds of thousands. Church fathers quote it. Irenaeus references it in his writings. Origen cites it as scripture. Tertullian treats it as authoritative. The Infancy Gospel isn't rare. It's mainstream, as familiar to early Christians as the Lord's Prayer. But a problem is growing in the empire. Questions no one can answer. Questions that will destroy these texts for 1600 years. Except in one nation that refuses to comply. Rome, 285 AD. Bishop Marcellus spreads 2 scrolls on his desk. Afternoon light cuts through a high window. On the left, the Gospel of Luke. On the right, the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. His finger traces Luke 2:52. Jesus increased in wisdom and stature. Increased, past tense. Meaning he learned, developed, grew in understanding over time. Marcellus shifts to the Infancy Gospel, a passage describing 6-year-old Jesus in a classroom. The teacher strikes him for interrupting. Jesus looks at the man and says, "You teach what you don't understand." The teacher's hand withers instantly. Jesus possesses complete knowledge, absolute power, at age 6. Marcellus leans back, presses his palms against his eyes. If Jesus knew everything from birth, how did he increase in wisdom? If he wielded unlimited power as a toddler, was he ever truly human? The theological contradiction has no solution. Luke says Jesus developed like a normal child. The Infancy Gospel shows him as fully divine from his first breath. Both cannot be true. Marcellus rolls up the scrolls, sets them aside. The problem will have to wait, but not for long. Milan, Italy. February 313 AD. Emperor Constantine signs a document that changes history. The Edict of Milan. Christianity is legal. Within months, churches emerge from underground. Bishops travel openly. Public worship begins. Constantine attends his first Christian service in Rome. He expects order, unity, a religion ready to unify his fractured empire. He finds chaos. One priest preaches from the Infancy Gospel. The congregation nods, familiar with every word. 2 streets away, another priest calls the same text heretical. His congregation agrees, equally certain. One church celebrates Mary's miraculous birth using the Proto-Evangelium of James. The next church over rejects the text entirely. Constantine summons Bishop Hosius to his palace. The emperor stands at a window overlooking the forum. His voice is ice cold. "How can this religion unify my empire when it cannot unify itself?" Hosius bows. "Every region has different traditions, my lord, different texts." Constantine turns from the window. His eyes are hard. Then eliminate the differences. One faith, one set of books, one truth. Hosius hesitates. "Some of these texts are beloved, my lord. Families have owned them for generations." Constantine's jaw tightens. "I don't care what families love. I care what the empire needs. Standardize it, now." The command is given. Executing it will take 50 years, and it will require burning what millions hold sacred. Alexandria, Egypt. 324 AD. Bishop Athanasius sits alone in his study. Dawn light creeps across the floor. The Infancy Gospel lies open before him. He has known these stories since childhood. His mother read them while rocking him to sleep. His grandmother kept a copy wrapped in silk, hidden during persecution. Now, Rome wants him to vote on whether they belong in Scripture. Athanasius reads the story of the dead playmate again. A boy named Zeno accidentally bumps young Jesus. Jesus speaks one sentence. Zeno falls dead. The parents scream. Joseph confronts his son. Mary weeps openly. Jesus eventually raises the boy, but the message is delivered first. Do not cross the Son of God. Athanasius closes his eyes. He loves these stories. They shaped his faith, his understanding of Christ's power. But he also sees their danger. They portray Jesus as temperamental, vindictive, a divine being struggling with human emotions. If the church keeps them, it admits Jesus had character flaws, immaturity, anger problems. If the church removes them, it betrays 4 generations who treasured these texts as scripture. Athanasius walks to his window. Alexandria spreads below. Thousands of homes, thousands of families who own these texts. How does he tell them their sacred scriptures are being erased? His hands shake. The vote is approaching. Before understanding why Rome burned these texts, hear the stories themselves, the way 2nd century mothers read them, the way children grew up knowing them, the way they were meant to be told. Nazareth, year unknown, the Sabbath. 5-year-old Jesus slips away to the stream behind Joseph's house. The mud is soft from recent rain. He scoops handfuls, forms shapes, birds, 12 of them. Small wings spread, tiny beaks pointed toward the sky. An elder named Annas walks past, sees the boy working clay on the Sabbath day. Forbidden. Annas's face darkens. He turns toward Joseph's workshop, robes flapping as he hurries. Jesus watches him go, looks at the 12 clay birds arranged on the rock, smiles, claps his hands once. The clay cracks, wings flutter. 12 sparrows burst into the air, their song filling the morning. By the time Annas returns with Joseph, the rock is empty. Just wet clay scattered on stone. Annas points, sputtering. Your son was molding clay, working on the Sabbath. I saw it. Joseph looks at Jesus. Is this true? Jesus spreads his empty hands, shows the wet clay. Nothing formed, nothing finished. I see no work, Father. Do you? Above them, 12 sparrows circle, singing. The evidence has vanished into the sky. Early Christians loved this story. It showed Jesus as clever, powerful, divine even at age 5. But it raised questions bishops couldn't answer. If a kindergarten-age Jesus performed miracles, when did his divinity begin? Was he ever truly a helpless infant, a normal toddler, or was he always God pretending to be human? Rome had no answer. Therefore, the story had to disappear. The next story is darker, much darker. Nazareth. Jesus is 7 years old. He walks through the village. Children play in the street, kicking a leather ball. A boy named Zeno chases the ball, doesn't see Jesus. Slams into his shoulder at full speed. Jesus stumbles sideways. Zeno laughs. Watch where you're going. Jesus turns slowly. His eyes are cold. No childish anger, no tears, just calculating power. You shall go no further on your way. Zeno takes one more step. His legs buckle. He drops into the dust like a stone. Silence. Then his mother's scream shatters the afternoon. She runs from her house, falls to her knees beside her son, shakes him. His eyes are open, empty, dead. Villagers gather, pointing, whispering, backing away from Jesus. Joseph arrives, face drained of color. What happened here? Zeno's father steps forward. His voice shakes with grief and rage. That boy killed my son, with words. Mary appears, grabs Jesus by the arm hard enough to bruise. What did you do? Jesus looks at the dead child, at the weeping mother, at the crowd pressing closer. His expression softens, slightly. He walks to Zeno's body, kneels in the dust, places one small hand on the boy's forehead. Arise. Zeno gasps. His chest heaves, eyes focus. He sits up, confused and frightened. His mother sobs, clutches him, rocks him. The crowd murmurs. Some make signs against evil. Jesus stands, walks home without speaking. Joseph and Mary follow, silent. That night, no one in Nazareth sleeps well. This story appeared in every major Christian region by 150 AD: Alexandria, Antioch, Rome, Carthage. Theologians debated it endlessly. Did it show Jesus learning mercy, understanding the weight of divine power, or did it reveal a God who struggled with human emotions, who killed impulsively and regretted it? The Infancy Gospel offers no commentary, no moral, just the raw event. A 7-year-old with the power to kill and resurrect. Church fathers couldn't explain it, couldn't defend it, couldn't reconcile it with the gentle shepherd they needed for evangelizing Rome. Therefore, into the fire it went. Nazareth. Jesus is 8 years old. Joseph decides he needs formal education. Arranges for a teacher named Zacchaeus. First day of school. Zacchaeus writes the Greek alphabet on a wax tablet. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. "Repeat after me, children." The other students obey. Jesus sits silent. Zacchaeus frowns. "Did you not hear me, boy?" Jesus looks up. "Why should I repeat what I already understand?" Zacchaeus' face reddens. "All students must learn the basics. Now repeat." Jesus stands, walks to the front of the classroom, points at the alphabet on the tablet. Alpha represents the beginning, the source, the unknowable essence from which all knowledge flows. Its shape mirrors the divine structure of... He continues, explaining the mystical meaning of each letter, the philosophical implications, the theological depths hidden in simple symbols. The other children stare, mouths open. Zacchaeus' hands clench. "Sit down. You are disrupting my lesson." Jesus ignores him, continues teaching. Zacchaeus grabs a wooden rod, strikes Jesus across the shoulders hard enough to leave a mark. Jesus stops mid-sentence, turns slowly. His eyes flash. "You strike what you cannot comprehend. You teach without understanding." Zacchaeus' hand begins to wither, skin tightening, fingers curling inward. The rod drops. His entire right hand becomes useless. The teacher cries out, stumbles backward. Jesus returns to his seat, sits calmly. Zacchaeus runs to Joseph's workshop, cradling his withered hand, weeping. Joseph finds Jesus at home that evening. "You cannot do this. He is a teacher." Jesus looks up from the floor where he's been drawing with a stick. "He struck me for speaking truth. He has authority over you in the classroom." Jesus' expression is unreadable. "No one has authority over me, Father." That night, Jesus visits Zacchaeus' house, touches the withered hand, heals it completely. But the message has been delivered. Do not strike the Son of God. This story terrified 4th century bishops. It showed Jesus using divine power to punish, to establish dominance, to instill fear, not the suffering servant dying for humanity's sins, not the gentle teacher welcoming children, an 8-year-old who withered a man's hand for disciplining him. Rome was trying to convert an empire, convince millions to follow Christ. This story made Jesus frightening, unapproachable, dangerous. Therefore, it had to be erased. Not every story was dark. Nazareth. Jesus is 9 years old. Joseph receives a commission from a wealthy merchant. A bed frame, precise dimensions required. Joseph measures, cuts, measures again. One beam comes up short, half a cubit too brief. Joseph sits heavily on his workshop stool, runs both hands through his hair. The merchant demands perfection. This mistake could destroy Joseph's reputation. Jesus enters, carrying water from the well, sets it down. "What's wrong, Father?" Joseph gestures at the beam. "Too short. I'll need new wood. Start over. The merchant won't pay for inferior work." Jesus walks to the beam, places his small hands on one end. "Hold the other end, Father." Joseph frowns, but grips the opposite end. Jesus closes his eyes, pulls, the beam stretches, wood grain lengthening, fibers extending without breaking. Joseph watches, mouth open, as the beam grows to exactly the required length. Jesus releases it, wipes his hands on his tunic. Now it fits. Joseph examines the beam, runs his fingers along the grain. Perfect. No seams, no joints, no evidence of alteration, as if it had always been this length. He looks at his son. Jesus has already left the workshop, returning to his chores. Joseph stands alone, holding the impossible beam. Early Christians cherish this story. It showed Jesus helping, serving, using power for humble purposes, divine strength applied to ordinary carpentry. But it presented the same fundamental problem, a 9-year-old altering physical matter with a thought. Rome needed Jesus relatable, human, growing in wisdom like any other child, not performing casual miracles in workshops, therefore erased. The childhood texts didn't only focus on Jesus. The Proto-Evangelium of James told a story Rome found equally dangerous, Mary's story, Jerusalem, decades before Jesus' birth. An elderly couple, Joachim and Anna, married for years, no children, past childbearing age. Joachim prays in the wilderness. Anna weeps in her garden. An angel appears to each of them separately. You will conceive a child. Anna vows to dedicate the child to God's service if the promise proves true. 9 months later, a daughter is born. They name her Mary. At age 3, Mary is brought to the Jerusalem temple. She walks up the 15 steep temple steps alone, a toddler climbing without help, without looking back. The priests take her. She lives in the temple until puberty, served by angels, fed by divine provision. At age 12, the priests face a problem. An adolescent girl cannot remain in the temple. They must find her a guardian. The high priest gathers all the widowers of Judea, commands them to bring their staffs, places the staffs in the Holy of Holies overnight. Morning comes. One staff has bloomed. A dove emerges from its top. Joseph's staff. He is chosen, an old man, a widower with adult children from his first marriage. Joseph protests. I'm too old. People will mock me, say I'm taking a young bride. The high priest's voice is firm. God has chosen. You will obey. Joseph becomes Mary's guardian, not her husband, her protector. When Mary conceives Jesus years later, Joseph's confusion is genuine. He knows he hasn't touched her. The Proto-Evangelium presents Mary as semi-divine, miraculously, conceived like Isaac or Samuel, temple-raised, perpetually virgin, more than human. Early Christians embraced this portrayal, but by the 4th century, bishops worried. Marian veneration was growing. In some regions, prayers to Mary outnumbered prayers to Christ. The Proto-Evangelium fueled that fire. If Mary was miraculously conceived, was she sinless from birth like Jesus? If angels served her as a child, did she possess divine nature? The theological complications multiplied. Rome chose elimination over explanation. Banned Laodicea, 364 AD. The council hall fills with bishops, fewer than attended Nicaea, but the stakes are higher. Bishop Theodotus stands, holds a scroll listing forbidden texts. His voice echoes in the stone chamber. The following are declared apocryphal, forbidden to be read in churches or copied by scribes. He pauses. The Infancy Gospel of Thomas. Several bishops bow their heads. The Proto-Evangelium of James. A murmur ripples through the assembly. The Book of Jubilees. An elderly bishop from Carthage rises. His voice cracks. These texts raised me in the faith. My mother read them, her mother before her. Theodotus doesn't look up. The canon is closed. The vote has been cast. The old bishop sits slowly. 3 texts, banned. But banning wasn't enough. They had to be physically destroyed. Everywhere, permanently. The systematic erasure begins. Rome, 380 AD. Church officials move through the city systematically, block by block, house by house. They carry lists, known owners of banned texts. Near the Colosseum, soldiers enter a small house. An elderly widow named Prisca lives alone. Her husband died in the Diocletian persecution 30 years earlier. The soldiers search. Under her bed, they find a wooden chest. Inside, wrapped in silk, lies her family's copy of the Infancy Gospel. Prisca steps forward. Her voice trembles. Please, my grandmother copied that herself 50 years ago. It's all I have left of her. The lead soldier doesn't respond, takes the scroll. Prisca follows him into the street. Please, I'll hide it. No one will see it. Just let me keep it. The soldier adds it to a growing pile in the square. 20 scrolls, 40, 70. By sunset, the pile towers shoulder high. They pour oil over it, set it ablaze. Prisca watches through tears as smoke rises into the Roman sky. Her grandmother's handwriting. 50 years of preservation. 4 generations of faith, burning. Similar scenes unfold across the empire. Constantinople, Antioch, Jerusalem, Carthage, Milan. Scribes who refuse to surrender texts are fined, some imprisoned, a few executed. Families hide their copies, bury them in gardens, seal them in walls, desperate attempts at preservation. Most fail. By 400 AD, possessing a copy of the Infancy Gospel is evidence of heresy, grounds for excommunication, sometimes execution. Within 2 generations, the texts nearly vanish from Western Christianity. Nearly, Aksum, Kingdom of Ethiopia. 380 AD, news from Rome reaches the highlands slowly. Travelers bring word. The childhood Gospels are banned. Possession is forbidden. Abba Garama sits in a stone monastery perched on a mountain cliff. He has just received the news. He looks at his shelf. 3 manuscripts. Infancy Gospel, Proto-Evangelium, Jubilees. His teacher gave them to him 20 years ago. That teacher received them from his teacher. An unbroken chain stretching back to Philip the Evangelist, who converted the Ethiopian eunuch in Acts chapter 8. 150 years of continuous transmission. A young monk enters. His face is worried. Abba, what do we do? Garama stands, walks to the window. Below, the Ethiopian highlands stretch endlessly. Mountains, valleys, desert beyond. Rome has no roads here, no soldiers, no authority. Garama turns back, pulls out fresh parchment, dips his reed pen in black ink. We copy them. The young monk's eyes widen. But Rome has declared them forbidden. Garama begins writing the first line of the Infancy Gospel. His hand is steady. Rome does not rule here. For the next 16 centuries, Ethiopian monks preserve what Rome tried to destroy. They copy the manuscripts by hand, every word, every letter. Generation passes the texts to generation. When Arab armies invade in the 7th century, monks hide manuscripts in mountain caves, seal entrances with stones. When Portuguese Catholics arrive in the 16th century demanding religious conformity, Ethiopian priests refuse, face excommunication, hold their ground. Geography protects them. The highlands are a natural fortress. Rome cannot enforce censorship in regions it cannot reach. Language protects them. The texts are written in Ge'ez, unknown outside Ethiopia. Foreigners cannot read them to ban them. Independence protects them. Ethiopia never submits to Rome, never yields to Constantinople, never compromises. The copying never stops. Not during invasions, not during famines, not during civil wars. The chain remains unbroken. While Europe burns these texts, Africa guards them. While Rome consolidates power, Ethiopia preserves diversity. While the West creates one narrative, the East keeps alternatives alive for 1,600 years, until a Scottish explorer stumbles into a mountain monastery, and the secret can no longer be contained. Ethiopian Highlands, October 1773. James Bruce climbs a narrow mountain path. His lungs burn. The altitude crushes his chest. He is searching for the source of the Nile River. He finds something more valuable. A monastery appears around a rocky bend. Ancient, remote, isolated from the world below. The abbot greets Bruce with suspicion. Foreigners rarely reach this elevation. Bruce explains his mission: geographic exploration, mapping rivers. The abbot listens, then gestures toward the monastery library. Bruce enters a dark room. Dust floats in shafts of light. Crude shelves line stone walls. There, wrapped in linen older than any European library, Bruce sees titles that stop his heart. The Book of Enoch. Complete. The Infancy Gospel of Thomas. Complete. The Proto-Evangelium of James. Complete. In Europe, these texts exist only as fragments, quotes in ancient church fathers. Scholars assume them lost forever, burned in the 4th century purges, destroyed by time, gone. But here, in this remote Ethiopian monastery, monks have copied them continuously for 16 centuries, every generation passing them intact to the next. Bruce's hands shake as he opens the Infancy Gospel. The story of the clay sparrows, the dead playmate, the withered teacher, all preserved, word for word. He asks permission to take copies back to Europe. The abbot considers, then nods slowly. The world should know what Rome tried to hide. London, 1821, scholar R.H. Charles publishes the first English translation of the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. The Western world is stunned. These stories haven't been read in Europe for 1,400 years. Churches debate, universities argue, newspapers publish excerpts. Some scholars embrace the texts as authentic early Christian writings. Others dismiss them as pious fiction, created generations after Christ. But one fact becomes undeniable. These weren't fringe documents. Irenaeus quoted them. Origen cited them. Tertullian referenced them. Millions of early Christians owned copies, read them to children, treasured them as scripture. They were mainstream for 3 centuries, until Rome decided they weren't. The question shifts. Not, are these stories true, but why was Rome so desperate to erase them? Today, anyone can read the childhood Gospels, translated into dozens of languages, available online, studied in universities worldwide. The stories Rome spent 16 centuries trying to burn are now accessible to billions, because one nation refused orders. Ethiopia didn't have better theology, or superior political connections, or more resources than Rome. It had 3 advantages: geography. The highlands were a natural fortress Rome couldn't penetrate. Language. Ge'ez was unknown outside Ethiopia. Romans couldn't read the texts to censor them. Independence. Ethiopia never submitted, never compromised, never yielded. While Rome burned manuscripts, Ethiopian monks copied them. While Europe standardized, Africa preserved diversity. While the West created one story, the East kept alternatives alive. The childhood stories don't prove Jesus performed these miracles. Most scholars view them as legends written generations after his death. But they prove something more important. Institutions control truth by controlling access. Rome didn't ban these texts because they were false. Rome banned them because they were complicated. They raised questions bishops couldn't answer. They presented a Jesus who didn't fit the strategy for converting an empire. They gave ordinary believers theological knowledge that threatened institutional authority. Therefore, they had to disappear. But burning books only works if burning happens everywhere. Rome never controlled Ethiopia. 1,600 years later, a Scottish explorer climbs a mountain, opens a manuscript wrapped in ancient linen, and the childhood Jesus Rome tried to erase comes back. The Ethiopian Bible still contains these stories, still reads them during Christmas liturgy, still preserves what the West tried to destroy. Not because the stories are more true, but because some truths survive even when empires demand their death. The clay sparrows, the dead playmate, the withered hand, the stretched beam, Mary's miraculous birth, all preserved, all available, all waiting to be read. Rome tried to hide them. Ethiopia refused to forget. What do you think about these banned childhood stories? Should they have remained in Western Bibles? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this hidden history shocking, hit that like button and subscribe for more suppressed biblical texts and forgotten stories the church doesn't want you to know. Thanks for watching.